One of my favourite methods is fishing the method up to islands in shallow water when it's nice and warm. It can be absolutely deadly. So what I'm going to do is talk you through all the tricks and little bits I do to maximise your catch rate. As I mentioned, I'm going to be fishing tight to the island today, and the main reasons for that is, one, it's boiling hot and the fish are all up in the higher levels of the water. You can probably see some swimming around, but obviously the best feeding place will be in that shallowest water. So I'm looking for a nice island chuck where it's comfortable to chuck the feeder and safe and clean, and also there's a little bit of cover and a little bit of shade coming from the trees, so I've got a nice consistent area where the fish are going to be happy to feed. Once I've picked my spot on the island, I don't just literally try and cast straight up to it. Never goes well. Usually end up in the hedge or on the island or in a tree nearby. So what I do is I'll work my way up to the position. It's really easy to do. I'll have a nice steady first cast. It's always nice to get a feel of the rod and the lead and everything you're using for the day ahead. And once I've done that first cast, I'll see where it lands, and perhaps it's 2 or 3 metres short. And all I'll do is literally pull 2 or 3 metres of line off, put it under the line clip, reel in, and then cast towards that marker again. And when I'm happy that I'm really close to the marker and it's in position where I need to be, I'm ready to go, without crashing into the bushes and making a mess of my swim before I start. A little tip, especially when it's warm and like it is today, when you're fishing tight to an island, make sure it's tight. Most islands are really undercut, so those fish can get right behind there. Get in the shallowest water you can, where it's nice and tight to the cover. You'll get bites a lot quicker. The gear I've picked for today's session is pretty simple really. I've gone for the 11-foot N-gauge feeder rod, and the reason why I've gone 11-foot is it's a pretty decent chuck that. It's probably about 35-40 metres, so this rod's perfect from anything from 30 to 50 to 60 metres max. I like this rod because it's got a real nice slim blank. It's got a lot of power in it when you're casting, so you can be very accurate, but the best thing about it is the playing action's superb, so you can have a lot of fun whilst you're playing the fish and be in full control. The reel, I don't really change my reels very often. This is my standard 4012 Daiwa TDR, and that's got 8-pound Pulse Pro line on. The two together match up perfectly. The line's strong enough and really powerful and durable throughout the whole session. I won't have to change that once, and the reel's got great winding power and a 4000 size spool, so casting sort of slightly longer distances on a commercial, it's absolutely perfect. From the reel line, I've gone straight to my feeder. I've got no shock leaders or anything today. 8-pound Pulse Pro is perfect. It's really durable. I don't even do my twisted loop behind the feeder anymore. This line's super strong and never lets you down. And I've simply got just the normal loop knot in the end of the line, and then I've gone for an X-Safe feeder. And that's the small feeder, but in 36 grams. So I've gone slightly heavier with the weight of the feeder, and that's purely just to help me get it to the destination with ease. And I will know, because I'm fishing at length, that that feeder will sit exactly where it lands. You may notice as well, I've got the long stem in there. It might look a bit funny, but the stem does two things. One, we're fishing for carp today, so it gives me a lot of support when I'm playing the fish. That elastic will stretch and just keep the hook hold in perfect position all the time. Another nice thing about the elastic as well, when you're catching a lot of fish, that elastic pulls out like that and keeps away from the fish's body, so there's no line rubbing up and down the side of the fish's body. So in my eyes, it's the safest way to fish it. And then the final thing about the long stem is accuracy. You put a long stiff stem behind a feeder, it will cast a lot straighter and a lot truer, so it's a real help. Down to the hook length, not scared on this one. We know there's some big carp in here. I've got 019 N-gauge, and that's just 4 inches of that, and that's tied to a size 12 QM1, the only hook for method feeder fishing in my eyes. And on this one in particular, I've got a small band where I'll be fishing a pellet or maybe a wafter, or even other baits like corn or meat. But I also have a couple more feeders set up so I can alternate the baits and use different hook lengths with different baits. A real nice feature of the X-Safe system is how quickly you can change your feeder. As I mentioned, this one's prepared and ready to go. It took me time while the other feeder was out, and all I literally have to do, pull back the tail rubber, unclip the loop, throw the old one in the bowl ready to get loaded for the next chuck, clip the new one on, literally ready to go, give it a lucky squeeze, and we're back fishing. Choosing quiver tips can be confusing, but I keep it really simple. Today you've seen I'm using the 11-foot N-gauge feeder rod, and that comes with 3 tips. You get a 1 ounce, a 1.5 and a 2 ounce carbon tip. So for me, I keep it really simple. Today I've chose the one in the middle, the 1.5 ounce tip. This is perfect for the rod, balance is lovely with it, and you still get a nice bit of action when you're playing fish and seeing bites. The 1 ounce tip, which is the lightest one, I tend to use that for a little bit shorter work and for smaller fish. Dead simple. And then the 2 ounce, which is the beefed up one, I use it when I'm using the rod at its maximum capacity, when I'm casting longer distances, and also when there can be a bit of tow or a bit of trouble on the water, bad conditions. So that's a 2 ounce. They all work perfectly well with the rod. If in doubt, go with the middle one. One of the most important things when doing method feeder tactics is the bait you're putting around the feeder. It's so important because that's what attracts the fish into the swim and around your feeder, and hopefully highlights your hook bait so you get a bite nice and quickly. So for me, there's no better bait than 2mm soaked pellets. They sit around the feeder nice, they break down nice and evenly, and they obviously build your swim. They leave plenty of food in your swim. So that's always my first choice, but I will never go fishing without the old trustworthy ground bait. Ground bait has so many flavours, additives, fish meals, pellets, so much in it that when the fish are feeding, they can't resist this sort of thing. So I'll always go with 2. My main attack, just from coming and fishing venues like this a lot, will be the pellets, but I won't be scared to add some ground bait to the mix, or even later on in the session when the fish are really feeding, put ground bait all on the feeder, and sometimes it can increase your catch rate even better. So preparing the bait for the session, very simple. These are the mainline 2mm activated cell pellets. These are my favourite pellets. They've got a hint of cell, which is a great flavour for carp. It's like a coconut sweet cell, perfect for the summer months. It's not offensive, and also the stickiness of the pellets just allows you to cast that little bit further with ease. So what I do first is I basically get the pellets, put them in a strainer and a bait box, and then I'll flood them with water. So the water's overflowing over the top, so all the pellets are totally submerged in it. And then I'll leave them for maybe 2–2.5 minutes this time of year, and then I'll take them out of the tub of water but leave them in the strainer. Usually put the strainer at an angle so the water can all flood off, and I'll probably leave them there for a good 5 or 10 minutes. After that, I'll remove them from the strainer into a big bucket and just let them air out. I usually do this in the morning at home before I come, and then what I'll do is I'll just leave them in the bucket in the car, travel to the venue, and by the time you get to the venue, you'll have a perfect consistency pellet like these. So they're nice and soft, they're really usable, and they sit around the feeder, and the nice thing is when you squeeze them together and give them a little touch, they break down nice and easily. So by having them like that, you know you'll be able to cast to the position you're fishing, the feeder's going to hit the bottom, and as soon as that water starts attacking the bait, it will break down nice and evenly and highlight your hook bait within the feeder. For the ground bait, really simple for today. I'm actually trying quite a new mix that Mainline Match are bringing out called Supreme Green. It's really designed for a bit of everything really. It's a good all-round ground bait. It's got lots of betaine in it, lots of crushed pellets, and some really good fish meals and other breaded flavours. So it's a great fish catching bait. But because we're fishing the method, what I've done is I've added a bit of the Mainline method mix. The method mix just got a little bit of tackiness to it, so it would just help the bait bind around the feeder a lot better. So they're my 2 baits. I've also got the little Mainline Match sticky cell additive there. That will just help me with my pellets if they're drying out when it gets a bit warm as the session goes on. So by adding this, it just makes them a little bit more sticky again, and you can bind them around the feeder nicely. So you're in full control of your bait. What I do is I always keep them separate, and I'll have a spare tub if I'm going to mix them together and try different things. So there you go, nice and simple, but the most important part of the method feeder tactic. When fishing the method feeder in the summer months, I like to be quite aggressive. When I say aggressive, I don't use a great big feeder, firing in a load of bait and sitting and waiting. I like to build the swim as if you were fishing the pole with a pole pot. So very similar. So what I do at the start is, obviously I said that I'm going to fish a 36 gram feeder today, which is actually a small one. And we're just going to keep building the swim. So for the first 15, 20 minutes of the session, I'll be casting every 2 minutes. Whether I get a bite or not, it's really important to keep that bait going in, to build the area and to get those fish used to that constant amount of bait going in. And then what I'll do, if the bites aren't coming as quick, so I'm not getting bites within that 2 minute period, I'll wait a bit longer. So after half an hour of the session, I'll perhaps wait 5 minutes for a good 10 minutes, a few 5-minute casts, and then I'll build it up and see what level those fish are feeding at. But hopefully I'll try and get that bite time down, so regular casting at the start will get the session going, and hopefully the rest will fall into place. So let's get this one out there. To complement the bait around the feeder, it's always good to have a nice range of hook baits. Myself, I'll probably go a little bit over the top, and I do tend to take quite a few different types. But for a commercial venue like this, the key one for me will be pellets. You're putting pellets around the feeder, so a hard pellet or a banded pellet on the hook or on the hair will be the perfect complement. I brought some green ones here. This venue is very renowned for green baits. It used to be all green pellets allowed, so these still work very well as a hook bait. But in there I've got some different sizes, 4s, 6s and 8s, and a few white ones there as well. So a bit of variety on hook baits. I've got the old faithful dead maggots. These work very well for all fish. I tend to take those with me all the time because a maggot will get you a bite. And then we've got the old faithful corn. A bit of hair rig corn works very well. It's a nice visible bait and complements the green ground bait especially. And then I've got a range of meat. This is the mainline match meat. I've just brought a few flavours with me. I've got the natural one, I've got the Scopex and pineapple, and I've got a strawberry one. Very sort of summery sort of flavours, nice and sweet, plenty of smell to them. But what I like to do with those is a little punch section on the hair works really, really well. It's a nice light bait and the fish are happy to eat it. And then something I never go without, probably the ultimate bait on a method feeder or a hybrid feeder, are your little wafters. I've just got a couple of flavours and sizes out today. We've got some pink ones, we've got some yellow, we've got some white, and we've got a new sort of fluoro red flavour there just to give a go. What I'll do is I'll start off on what I know, which will be the 8mm green pellets, and then I'll go through the motions and try different things and try and think how the fish are behaving, how they're reacting, and I've got plenty of choices to try and trick them. Right, so that's the feeder out and in position. Let me show you how I load the feeder. As you can see, there's a couple of feeders in here. Mentioned earlier that I like to have a couple ready and raring to go. So they're exactly the same, 2 36 gram small method feeders with the long stems in. So everything's identical, just 2 slightly different attachments on the end so I can use different hook baits. Loading the feeder, really simple but very important. Use the Guru method mould, small feeder, so it's the small mould, and I literally do it in 2 parts. So first of all, I'm loading the feeder. I've literally filled that full. These are nice soft pellets, and what I'm going to do is drop the feeder in and really compress the pellets against the feeder. You can't ever put these on too hard. Pellets will always go back to their natural shape and break down very quickly as soon as the water gets around them. So the first layer's on nice and tight there. And what I do is just press the back of the mould or just break the seal and that will fall out. So there we go, the first layer, all ready to go. That will stay on there, that's your main base. And then I just put a small amount in the feeder, probably fill it about 1/3 full. And then I drop my hook bait in what I call the optimal position, which is in the widest part of the feeder. As you can see by the Guru feeders, they do have a bait table. So if you are putting the feeder on the table, that's the position you're trying to reenact there. And the reason why I do 2 layers, let me just put that second layer on. I don't give it such a hard press, this one, because there's not as much bait there. So just give it another press so it's nice and protected and covered. That layer will just protect your hook bait. So the idea we're trying to achieve is this will all go out in one piece, it will hit the water, it will go to the bottom and then start breaking down immediately. And what the effect I'm trying to get is the hook bait to be on show nice and quickly. So the hook bait be on show, and then that second layer, which is tighter compact, will break down a bit slower. So you've got the perfect ball of free food with your hook bait directly on the top. The nice thing about a method feeder, over a hybrid feeder is the bait will break down a lot quicker, so you're fishing almost immediately.